How's it going, everyone? 10.1.5 is already about to come out, and man, it feels like this expansion is flying by so far. But with the patch notes here, I want to go ahead and give my thoughts on the Enhancement Shaman changes going into this. Blizzard seems to have come into this patch with two goals for Enhancement. The first is that they wanted to nerf the Dragonflight Season 1 tier set bonus, which I was a little bit surprised by because I didn't think anyone was really running this anymore. So I don't think this change is too significant, but what is significant is that they're nerfing the bonus damage from Chain Lightning for our current 4 set bonus. In Blizzard's own words from the developer's note, the new Season 2 set has introduced some interactions with Chain Lightning where the spell might be used even on single target encounters. So we are reducing the Season 2 set bonus interaction to keep Chain Lightning as a spell to only use when fighting multiple enemies. But luckily, to compensate for this, they are increasing the damage of our Storm Strike, Wind Strike, Lava Lash, and Ice Strike abilities all by 20%. And our Maelstrom weapon trigger rate has been increased to 20% from 16%. And overall, these changes are giving us around a 5 to 6% increase to our single target damage, while being a minor nerf to our AoE damage. Overall, while it does suck to lose some AoE damage, because it is only around a 0.5% or a percent loss, it shouldn't be too noticeable, whereas the 5 to 6% boost to our single target damage in raid should be a nice little boost to have. And the fact that they're moving power from a tier set bonus into just our base kit, I think is always good to see. That way we don't become too reliant on borrowed power. But I was a little bit surprised to see these changes, because the fact that Chain Lightning was going to be used in single target situations was definitely known very early on once these tier sets came out on the 10.1 PTR. So I do wish this was addressed a bit earlier on if they were going to go through with this change. That way we don't need to worry about changing up our rotation too much mid-patch. So I do wonder if they just kind of ran out of time of the 10.1 PTR to test these changes then, or if you go back and you look at the patch notes from 10.1, they actually mentioned they wanted to reduce the number of keybinds that Enhancement had, and in order to do that, they made the changes to Thorum's Invocation and Sack Accumulation to try to push our lightning spells to become our main spenders and have us not rely on having to use Elemental Blast. So I do wonder if these changes were as successful as they thought they might be, and we were using just Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning, even though it was single target, if they would have been fine with that. But now that we're using Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, and Elemental Blast, they're saying that's too many spenders for us to be focusing on using, and so they're trying to cut back on one of those, which Chain Lightning is probably the easiest answer to address. As a quick tangent here, I'm not really sure why they thought we would drop Elemental Blast though, just because we're getting the bonus lightning damage. If you take a look at the talent tree for Storm's single target here, and I remove the point from Elemental Blast, you'll see that the bottom of the tree is no longer unlocked, and that is because we only have 19 points at the top of the tree here. Elemental Blast is our 20th point, which is actually unlocking this bottom section, meaning we have to put this point somewhere towards the top of the tree. And there's just not a whole lot of great options for this to go. We have Swirling Maelstrom, which would give us a guaranteed Maelstrom stack generation on Ice Strike, which isn't necessarily bad, but Ice Strike isn't something we want to be using too frequently anyways. The other option is we could put another point into Molten Assault, but again, the Lava Lash cooldown doesn't matter a whole lot to us because we want to be focusing on using our Storm Strikes with this build. And then the final option that would maybe make sense is Crash Lightning, which would become an extra filler spell, but this would be the lowest damaging ability that we have outside of maybe just casting Flame Shock. And so there's just really not a great option here to move the Elemental Blast point to. If they do go ahead and try to change something in 10.2, I'd be very interested to see how they would actually affect the tree, or if they would heavily nerf Elemental Blast to avoid us using it. And when it comes to the Elementalist build, it's not something we would ever really drop because Elemental Spirits is giving Elemental Blast a 20% damage boost per wolf that's active, which is pretty insane. So I don't see any way that Elemental Blast wouldn't be in our rotation in its current state outside of AoE scenarios. In the end, I do think the Chain Lightning change was for the best, and it will probably clean up the most annoying parts of the Storm single target rotation, which was managing Thorum's Invocation, making sure that Lightning Bolt was reprimed after using your Chain Lightnings from your tier set. The other enhancement specific changes in this patch are all related to the overall mana economy changes they're doing across the board for hybrid classes, and unless you're just constantly using your healing spells, these really shouldn't have any sort of effect on us in PvE. There were also a few changes to just shamans in general that do minorly affect us. The first being Brimming with Life now increases our maximum health by 8% at all times instead of just when reincarnation is off of cooldown. This is obviously a very nice change to have. We don't need to worry about using Onk and losing 8% of our max health anymore. And the other and more significant change is the nerf to the healing of Ancestral Guidance. Ancestral Guidance can no longer cause healing from non-class abilities such as trinkets or potions, and its healing per tick is now being capped at 20% of our maximum health. But this might not be as significant of a nerf as it initially seems. My character, for example, has 550,000 health currently without any sort of stamina buffs. And if Ancestral Guidance is capping off at 20% of that means I can still be doing about 111,000 healing per tick. But keep in mind, Ancestral Guidance is healing based on 25% of your damage done, so in order to do the maximum amount of healing per tick, I would need to be doing 444,000 damage. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely times, especially in Mythic Plus, where we're getting off a Primordial Wave and Power Lightning Bolt on up to 6 targets, and we are doing this much burst damage or even more. And in those cases, this is definitely a nerf. But for the most part, I don't think we're going too high above that burst damage to where we're actually missing out on too much healing from this. So even though that, yes, this is a slight nerf, I don't think it's going to be as noticeable as people might initially be thinking. And that about wraps up all my thoughts on this overall. I'm excited for 10.1.5. I think the Enhancement Shaman changes are still moving us in a good direction. Let me know your opinions in the comments below, and have a nice day.